Hi. Um, I'm waiting. So I should start by explaining to you where I come from. There's another person from Deutsche Bank today here. So Deutsche Bank is a very large organization, and we have lots of social responsible initiatives. Some really cool initiatives. We've got this climate change funds and the I Fund, which actually Arthur from Ashoka has worked with. I don't come from social responsible investing. I have nothing to do with it. I come from a place that has a dirty word in it. I come from equity derivatives. And the reason I want to make that distinction and make it very clear is that I am not a spokesperson for Deutsche Bank or for their social responsible investing. Okay, this is a very agnostic transaction within the derivatives. It uses basic concepts of capital markets, and I have opinions, and I have lots of them. So I want to have this huge disclaimer that they are all completely personal opinions. So anyway, the reason I'm here really is because Arthur Wood asked me to be here. And I follow Arthur blindly because he's been an incredible help. He's a partner in this venture. He believes in this. I believe in it, obviously. And so I'm here to share. And the reason I tell you that that's the only reason that I'm here is because I'm a startup, okay? I'm in the launch phase, and quite frankly, I have nothing to sell to you today, and it actually makes me uncomfortable up to a point to be at this stage still. And I'll tell you why. It's because I've been listening to a lot of the presentations today, and actually, hold on a second. I can talk a lot, so I have to remember what time I started. I've been listening to a lot of the conversations here today, and my instinctive reaction and what I want to build in this, it goes along the lines of a lot of things that people seem to be asking for, the concept of a market. Okay? And in my dream, a couple of years from today, or hopefully less than that, I will have that market, okay, for certain topics, obviously. Right now, I also should say I don't know what are the big topics in Canada when it comes to social finance. I'm doing one right now in South America, in Peru precisely. This is where we're launching the first quality of life market. But in essence, the position that I want to be in is how can I help you? Okay. I want to create that market because when I meet with people, I'm trying to create that situation in which we go into action, like really fast. I can talk for hours about philosophy of social finance and classifications and so on. I'm actually a little bit tired of it. I just want to go into the action. I want to, if somebody, for example, and let's see if, hold on a second. In the first quality of life market or Q market that we're doing is called dignified homes. So when it comes to the topic of dignified homes in Peru, today in Peru, only 40% of the homes meet basic criteria of having a toilet, talking about the World Toilet Organization. So I'm creating a market around it. And what does a market mean? A market is a place where there's an exchange, there's a valuable exchange. And several of you mentioned today valuable exchange. So what kind of exchange we can have that is valuable, right? And that's actually what I'm looking to create. And I'm going to move into what does this mean of a valuable exchange. I think it's a place where don't get bogged down in the slide yet, but it's a place where if you have something that of interest in that topic, and you want to play a role. Either you want a job, or either you want to donate money, or either you want to make an investment related to it, or you have an opinion that you want to. I mean, that's the place where I want to concentrate all the action so that something really valuable happens. So how do I do that? I'm going to explain to you the first transaction, and then actually, if we have time and anybody wants to jump in and ask me about it, that's fine. Just raise your hand or shout out. Basically, the Q market concept is the following. There's one side of the trade, I'm going to call it a trade, that people that say, oh, I wish that dignified homes in Peru go from 40% today to 70% in 10 years. And some people say, oh, well, that's crazy. Say, okay, maybe that's crazy, but is that something you want? So if it's something you want, at least be willing to say that. You're putting on the table and saying, yes, I'm willing to pay $10 million in 10 years if dignified homes actually reach 70%. Okay, so that's actually what I'm doing. Is on the promiser side, I'm building up. I'm going to companies and telling them, assign a value to a non-controversial, non-political social cause. Just assign it and put it somewhere so that people can see it. Okay, make it tangible. And so that's what I've been doing. And I don't know exactly how much money, but we're talking in the $30 to $40 million range of commitments that I've raised in. They can bail out in this market, who knows? They've signed letters of intent, let's put it that way. 4 major corporations in Peru, the chairman of those 4 major corporations actually signed a letter of intent. So that's for me, even though the transaction hasn't happened, that was huge. And then on the other side, what we're gonna do is we're going to auction off the rights to that money. So that somebody today can pay, let's say, $4 million. I'm going to make up these numbers, right? Let's assume that we have $100 million in the trust. Today, so if I auction this off, somebody can pay $4 million and take away the rights to that $100 million, if indeed the index reaches that low. Now, make it clear, it's not a gamble because by itself, the index is not going to reach that low. Shall I pause to see if anybody has any questions? Anybody has any questions? Is it very clear or is it completely unclear? Oh, that's a good question. I created the Dignified Home Index in Peru. Okay, so it's an independent calculated index. I grabbed a highly reputable index calculation agent. We sat down, we designed an index, how to measure the percentage of homes that meet 7 specific factors in Peru. And again, this is Peru, but this is, later we can extrapolate this to, so the key thing is define very precisely how you're gonna measure the objective and then define the desired result, okay? And at the very least, what we want is some sort of yield curve saying like, we should assign an economic value. I mean, let's say we could do poverty, right? I mean, it's an issue of framing, like how to actually frame the result. I think this is directly related to poverty. I personally think it's related to crime. There's a lot of things embedded in it. There's so that's how we do it, and then that's how I'm building the trust. The trust is around the index, so the index is the decision factor. So in some ways, what I'm creating it sounds horrible because it's, again, in this market, you say, oh, another Ponzi scheme. But I quite frankly, the way that it's designed is that, yes, there is a Ponzi scheme element, but it's a very positive thing. It's like you actually create value before the promiser is saying, if indeed dignified homes reach 70%, there's going to be a lot of value created, and therefore we're willing to pay. It's almost like paying a commission ex post into the trust. So in the meantime, the investors, whoever buys the rights to that trust, they're buying themselves the challenge of facilitating this. And maybe anybody else has any question? Yeah.
So a question of clarification.
Yep.
In your example,
Correct. That's one way to look at it. And I assure you have a lot more questions, and they all have it. But yes. No, because the reason I say that is because actually reaching to 70% dignified homes, if you think of it in a very straight line way, we're talking about billions of dollars needed to actually get there. Here's essentially maybe. So yeah, here just a quick one. Like the size of the challenge is just gigantic. The size of the opportunity. Let me. For the promisor, essentially, the value proposition is the following. The level of promise that I'm getting people to, it just can't compare with the level of benefit to, the externality is just huge. It's so much so that people are saying, how can you do that? Like, there's no way that and here's sort of the premise. The premise is that if you go through the entire value chain or supply and demand chain of dignified homes, really, the premise is that the bottlenecks really move. And I have real world examples of this, in which what we're seeing is that sometimes it's architecture, sometimes it's actually demand themselves. We see it in the topic of sanitation. For some reason, a lot of people assume that people want toilets, and that may not be true. Like, people are not even thinking about, hey, I want a toilet, I want a dignified home. They have no issue, they just go and, so maybe that's maybe the issue is in financing. Maybe the issue is in actual construction. So the bottleneck constantly moves. Ironically, so in the case of even simpler than homes, just pure water, and I've had this conversation with an endorser of this project, which is a former prime minister of Peru. He said, in the case of Peru, pure clean water and sewage for all Peruvians costs $5 billion. Okay. The money is not the problem. The problem is actually execution, and by execution we don't mean construction and delivery of artifacts. That technology exists. The problem is really that there's something missing. It's leadership, call it whatever you want. There's a missing factor, which is organization. I mean, people see it differently. So what we're doing essentially with these Q markets is we're creating now something equivalent to stock options, but rather than having them pay off if the net income of a company goes up or the stock of a company goes up, is that they just pay off if the goal is met. And in the design of this, the key point is, where do you put the goal? Okay? So the goal in the auction, we're going to put it somewhere between what the market thinks is incredibly ambitious yet not impossible, right? I mean, for 80% of the people, maybe it is impossible. They perceive it as impossible. So anyway, so that's essentially, we're creating stock options so that by creating these two ends of the spectrum, one that pays if the goal is reached, and the other one is that they receive all the money, is that you're creating the two ends of the spectrums, and then you can create everything else in between. And when people talk about the marketplace, is that I'm planning to put them all in a central marketplace so that people can see. Actually, the first few slides of the presentation is the job description by Korn Ferry of we've put out a search for a CEO of this new venture. So the first transaction is going to create a new venture, a new startup. Let's say that the seed capital is $4 million in options, and then $1 million to start. And their role, the role of this new startup, is not to construct, is not to finance, it's actually to make the system work. And if they get the system working, then the market value of that startup goes up, going up. Anyway, I'll pause again for questions. You're laughing. No, behind you. So I mean, here's when I started saying what I'm looking for is to create something like, how can I help you? And the how can I help you is, I am not the change engine. I'm not the construction. But if somebody comes and says, listen, I've got this great design that, and I'm doing that, by the way, already. Somebody showed up and said, we have this great design, how we can design a house for $8,000, and in the rest of the world, this house cost blah, blah. I'm saying, great. So I'm putting them together. I'm creating this market of doers with the promisors. and put them all together in that same place. I say, oh, I wish I could work for this. I was like, I have this skill. Great. So this is, creating an active market of where transactions will actually happen so that we don't have to think of, oh, you're a martyr that has to dedicate your entire life to dignify. No. The scale, and again, I'm not talking in terms of Canada. I'm talking about my exposure to the types of problems that I'm thinking about. We don't have years, okay? It's like when you think about a world where 40% of, in the case of Peru, and again, this is very particular to Peru, but Peru it's interesting because Peru has never been in a better financial shape than it is today. Yet 40% of the people go to their homes and don't have a toilet. So I think it's an unviable situation to think of a future democracy, capitalistic market, or a society in which that happens. Okay, it's just not viable, in my opinion. I think we will have, Hugo Chavez as president in 6 years if we don't solve this problem. And this is a problem very common to all of Latin America, and the problem in Asia and Africa is just much worse. So I'm talking about very extreme cases. I'm not talking. I think this can be applied to a lot of, not as extreme cases. I've done a lot of research. Framing education is an issue I won't touch right now, but it's adaptable to education, to a lot of topics, because it's an issue of first defining a non-controversial, non-political vision of the future that we just define the result. But anyway, so these are all capital market concepts. There's nothing really. It's very simple. It's not high finance. Finance is actually really simple. People just complicate it because that's how bankers or financiers make their money, by complicating stuff. But this is very transparent. This is very simple, using very capital markets concepts, and creating value propositions so that literally, if you have a role in dignified homes or whatever Q market we're looking to create later on, there has to be a business proposition for you in this market. But anyway, that's pretty much what we're doing. Yeah, the rest is just these are the companies that have signed the letter of intent for the trade. I've received more than 100 resumes for the CEO. That's really easy to say, but it's a good book. Like, we have some very senior, proven, large-scale CEOs that have put their names forward to be this. This is just quotes, and that's it. This is my plan, basically, to complete the first trade in Peru. It's just taken so long because there's so much bureaucracy and new processes that need to be adapted. But the idea is that as soon as I complete that, I can move and do more trades in Peru, and then keep on doing it. We have a lot in the pipeline. Some organizations take longer than others, but anyway, that's it.